This is Chapter 5, Section 1, Ratios. So far, we have had two different interpretations of the meaning of a fraction. If we had something like along the lines of A over B, where A is our numerator and B is our denominator, this is a fraction, and we say that we have A parts of a whole that is divided evenly into B parts. That means our denominator is the number of parts we've cut the whole piece into, and A is how many of those parts we have. That's one interpretation of fractions that we have talked about so far. We also can interpret the fraction to mean division. A over B is the same as A divided by B, or sometimes we write it this way, A divided by B. But it can mean, fraction just means division. So now we are going to come up with a new interpretation, and we're going to have three. So this one, A over B, is a ratio, or the comparison of two quantities, A and B. So if we're comparing two things, then we can write it as a ratio. And that's what we're going to talk about here. So here is our formal definition. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities. Again, quantity is an amount or a number. Ratios can be written in three different ways. We can write A to B or A to B, and we can write it as A to B. Now, I said them all the same, didn't I? They sounded just exactly the same. But here, A to B, that's written out. This colon here means two, so A to B, it's read the same way. And this way, we write it as a fraction, A to B, and it's said exactly the same way. So when written as a fraction, A to B, we generally simplify to lowest terms. And so let's look at an example of this. Let's say in our classroom, we have 10 men and 15 women. So in our classroom, I'm not quite sure if that's actually true, but we'll just use that for our example today. There are 10 men and 15 women. All right, so let's look at the ratio of men to women. What is the ratio of men to women? The ratio of men to women. Okay, so in this case, we want to be very careful about our words, men to women. That means that the men will go first in our answer. So the answer here, the ratio of men to women, we have 10 men to 15 women. That's the ratio of men to women. We have 10 men to 15 women. And we have 10 men to 15 women. That is the answer to what is the ratio of men to women in our classroom. All right, now if we have it as 10 to 15, we said earlier that when we write it as a fraction, we want to leave it in lowest terms. And so what we want to look for is common factors that we have in our numerator and in our denominator. Well, I can tell that both of these are divisible by 5, so I'm going to rewrite 10 as 2 multiplied by 5, and I'm going to rewrite 15 as 3 multiplied by 5. Now I can see here clearly that I have a common factor of 5 in my numerator and my denominator. Well, I know 5 over 5, that's just the same thing as 1, and so we say we cancel that or reduce this. So the ratio of men to women in our classroom is 2 to 3. What if we asked the opposite, the ratio of women to men written as a fraction? Women to men. In this case, we have in our classroom 15 women, and we have 10 per every 10 men. So for every 15 women in our classroom, there are 10 men. And this, again, we have to reduce this. This would be 3 multiplied by 5, and 10 is 2 multiplied by 5, and we cancel that, and we can see that the ratio of women to men in our classroom is 3 to 2. For every 3 women, there are 2 men. For every 2 men, there are 3 women. And we just have to be very careful about what we are, the way we write it, and that we actually write it the way we mean it. That is how we do look at ratios.